Hello, grade 10 students who are a little bit confused with the assignment where you needed to cut out all the squares to talk about proportion, right? So this is a kind of a weird one, and I realize some of you don't even have access to a printer, so I thought I would just give you a little bit of help. So I have cut them all out, and I have measured them. So I've got out my handy little ruler, and I was able, by taking measurements, to determine their dimensions. So for example, if we look at C is approximately 4.5, just about 4.5. I mean, they're not perfect because they're little pieces of paper. So about 4.5 by roughly 3. So if we say to ourselves, okay, well, if C is 4.5 by 3, we would know that that's a ratio of 1.5. How do I know that that's a ratio of 1.5? Well, I would literally just go 4.5 divided by 3. And I get 1.5. So my ratio would be like 1.5, right? For C. So I took the time to cut them out, and I had to figure out each one's measurements, and most importantly, each one's ratio. So I is about 3 by 2, all right? So number I was about 3 long by 2 wide. And again, if you're not sure what proportion that is, you just go 3 divided by 2. And you're gonna get, my calculator just does that, I just have to press this button, 1.5. So again, I get another ratio of 1.5. All right, so literally, I mean, and I realize I'm helping you with this because I know some of you do not have access to a printer. But here's the way, if you did have a printer and you were really willing to check, again, I know they're hard to work with because they're little tiny pieces of paper. I should have almost been able to do like a cardstock or like cardboard to make it all better. But if you line up all of their edges, like it said in the assignment, and you put them all biggest to smallest on top of each other, like this, for all these ones that are the same proportion, they have a 1.5 ratio. That's what we say, 1.5. And then we were going to take our ruler and we would go through the coordinates. Notice that the corner is hit by every single one. So that means that the length to width ratio, the length to width proportion is the same on all of these, okay? So on C, so they are what we call in math similar, because it has the same ratio. So you're working on your vocabulary sheets as well. So C, I, B, G, E, and A are basically one family or one ratios together. Then, and again, if you kind of visually look at them, like if you just look at them as well and you think proportionately, kind of use your eyeballs and distance this length to this length, right? The length and maybe the width, or the length and the height, whatever you want to call it. Maybe I'll call this one the width and this one the length. It doesn't really matter. But if you think, okay, well, what is, if this was a ratio of 1.5, let me measure some of these. All right, well, let's D. D is almost 4. I mean, again, if I was going to go there, it's not quite. I cut it off a little bit too small. And again, about 2. So kind of like D, I was going to look at family D. It's roughly, again, not perfect, but it's roughly a 4 by 2. Well, then its ratio would be more like 2. All right, well, let's prove my point with one last 1. I'm kind of doing a makeshift little video studio here. Okay, let's do our tiniest one. J. Look how small J is. J is literally, you can see that, it's just 1. J is just has a distance of 1, and its height is like half. Right? So if we take 1 again, and we're like, okay, well, how many times does basically half go into 1? We say 1 divided by half, you're going to get 2, right? So I can tell that D and J, the 4:2 ratio, is the same as the 1/2 ratio. So I literally measured all of them out, which you didn't have to, but because you're basically just proving that when you put them on top of each other again, they are similar. That's our math word. They have the same ratio. So H, well, they're so hard to work with. I have a hard time working with little tiny pieces of paper. And J. So if I put that one on top, I'm going to prove to you in the best way that I can with these very tiny little pieces of hard to work with paper. And I put my ruler on top. That second one is not really, that third one's not really cooperating with me, but it's pretty close. Right? So that you can see all of those coordinates are also, all of the top corners are all the same. It is the same ratio. It is similar. I hope that helps.